Now, my question for Jensen is, you went on the Inside of You podcast, and I loved your episode. You said that when you found out about Dean dying, which we didn't like, or some of us did, some of us didn't, you said it yourself, that you reached out to Kripke to kind of like get yourself into like, you know, you had a hard time letting go of Dean. If you can and if you want, what did Kripke tell you? Because to be honest, to this day still, I'm having a hard time letting go of Dean. So that's how amazing you played that character and how amazing Misha played that character that to this day, I'm still having hard feelings of letting them go. So thank you guys so much for that. If you'd like to answer that question, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Well, Alex, right? Alex, thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here. And I'll start my answer by saying this: that Dean's not dead. Dean's right here. He's right there. So we got brought. Jared and I actually got brought to LA, and we got sat down in the writer's office there in the production offices in Los Angeles, and which we had done for the first time in 15 years, because they were going to pitch us the end of the series. And we sat down and we said, okay, this is kind of the broad strokes of the season. And I was like, yeah, get to the end. And for some reason, I felt like one of the brothers was going to have to go. And I had even had a dream about it, which I've shared multiple times, and some of you heard that story, but where it was Dean that was left alone. And he had to find a way to carry on, effectively. And so I wasn't prepared to hear that Dean was the one that was going to go. And it took me back. It took me by surprise, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, all right. Well, let me marinate on that a little bit, guys. Let me get back." And I got back home, and I was talking to my wife about it. And I was like, I don't know. It's not like what I was thinking. It's not what I was hoping. It's not kind of how I saw that story going. And she suggested, she's like, you should reach out to Eric, and you should talk to him and see what he thinks, because he's the guy who created it. And he's been away from it, so he can look at it kind of from a different perspective. So I called Eric up and I said, hey man, let me know when you got some time to talk. I want to bend your ear about something, which I do from time to time. That was not out of the ordinary. Kripke's been very much an amazing mentor to me in a variety of things. So I got on the phone with him, and I basically pitched the pitch that they had pitched me. And I said, I'm having trouble, kind of accepting this story and this finality for Dean. I'm like, can you tell me what you think? And he said, let me think on this for a minute. I don't want to give you a knee-jerk reaction to what I think. Let me take some time, and I'll send you an email in a couple of days. And so he did. He was about to get on a plane, and I think he sat on that plane and thought about that situation and he sent me this beautifully crafted email, because he's an amazing writer. And
every even pithy response from him.
Oh, even the text messages are just so crafty.
Yeah.
And he sent me this email and basically said that it was Dean that needed to go because he wouldn't be able to survive without Sam. And it would have been destructive. Dean would have probably gone into a dark, dark place and drowned his sorrows with all the wrong things. And I think he's right. I think that was, Dean needed that connection. He needed those brothers in arms, and now he had lost Cass. He had lost, he was kind of, he relied on that camaraderie as something to fight for. Fighting for himself was not something that I think Dean necessarily ever thought he needed to do. He always fought for somebody else. And so in order for the story to kind of go the way it did, it had to be Dean to let go. And it had to be him to be the one to hang it up and beg Sam to continue on, because Sam had the capacity to live his life as a way of honoring his brother. And I don't think that Dean would have been able to do that. I think Sam was a stronger character inherently than Dean was. I mean, it's the Luke Skywalker Han Solo situation, and so I'm just doing a horrible job of telling you what Eric said, but he said it in such a beautiful way that I was like, that makes a lot more sense. And I thanked him, and I called up the Dab and Bob Singer in LA, and I said, all right, let's rock and roll. Let's do it. And by the time we got to shoot that scene, I was fully on board with this being the hero moment that Dean had been living his whole life for. And he was doing it because he knew that it was time to let Sam live and continue on. And that was his wish, and it was time for him to go. And so, even though it was tough to watch and it was maybe tough to let go of him from a fan perspective and from my perspective, I believe it was the better way to go as far as the story goes. And it made good TV. You know, at the end of the day, it was compelling. It was a compelling story to watch, and it made people feel things. And at the end of the day, that's what we try to do. We get up there, we tell these stories, we play these characters because we hope to make you feel something. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yell that again. I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you, man.
Hi, my name is Oma.
Hi, Oma.
So I didn't really have a question because my friend threw me up here, but the last panel, Jeffrey Dean Morgan said that he really wanted baby, and that he did not think that you knew how to drive a stick, Jensen. So question is, do you?
Well, that tells you what Jeff knows, because baby's an automatic.
Touche. Oh my God! That reminded me of the story you told about like having to have the spotlight removed and all the bells and whistles removed from baby. I had the pimp mobile. Do you remember that? You remember it had those hydraulics in it? And one day Jared was in the passenger seat in the scene, and the first AD came to the window and he was like, "Don't touch the buttons." And Jared just went like this. Because they were renting that car. They never actually bought the pimp mobile. They were renting it from this guy who was like, sweet Jesus, I'm going to retire off this. Because they kept renting the car from him year after year, and he made probably 10 times the value of the car, renting the car to the show. And so as soon as the first AD walked away, after saying, don't touch the buttons, Jared started pressing the buttons. And it was just jumping up and down. It was like a real lowrider, like jumping up and down.
No, it looked like a Snoop Dogg video.
It was amazing, but of course he broke the car, and it cost him $15,000 to repair the hydraulics. The car, by the way, was worth about $10,000. And then when they brought it back to set, they disabled the.
You couldn't do that because they had to Jared-proof the car. But to quickly answer your question, my father made me learn to drive with a standard transmission. So I'm just fine driving standard.
Our kids aren't going to learn how to drive standard.
They won't.
Unless we get an antique
kids
car.
these days aren't even learning how to drive.
Right.
Period. They're like, no, just Uber.
I know, it makes me sick. I was a big fan of standard transmission, and I always bought a standard transmission car, and then car manufacturers stopped making standard transmissions. Like a lot of cars, you can't buy standard anymore.
No, it's only like, mostly like
Europe.
Sports cars or stuff like that. But it's, I had, in LA, I was on Days of Our Lives. Wow. So you're the people that watch that. Got it. Okay. And I was, 19 years old, 20 years old or whatever, and I was like, oh, I am making some dough. I'm gonna give myself a toy. And I got a 1973 Ford Bronco. 4 on the floor. Big, like one of those giant, gear shifts. and I drove that thing all over LA. And people are like, why are you driving this? I'm like, because it's awesome. But I think that was probably the last standard transmission that I had. Jeff and I talked about in our meet and greet. I did go to Europe at one point. I was in Scotland, and I rented a car.
And you can rent a standard there.
And it happened to be, it was like a little Audi or something that was a standard transmission. The steering wheel's on the other side of the car, which means that now I'm shifting with my left hand,
Right.
going through roundabouts, screaming like crazy. I will say that we were there for 2 weeks or something. I got pretty good. So I'm ambidextrous when it comes to standard transmissions. Just so you know, take that, Jeff.
I was just in Norway. I'm not trying to brag, but I was just in Norway, and I rented a standard transmission car as well. And I was driving I basically drove all around the country, and I was like, my God, these people are so civilized. It's ridiculous. Like, the speed limit says 90 kilometers, and everyone goes 90 kilometers. I'm like, fuck this, I'm gonna go 120. I was enjoying the highway. And right toward the end of the trip, I noticed a little camera on the side of the highway.